Hello and welcome to the Fulhamish podcast. My name is Sammy James. This is the show that takes a weekly look at everything to do with Fulham FC. Joining me in the studio this evening is Ben Jarman and Jack Collins. Thank you for joining me, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Well, the injury crisis continues. Farrell Monk fast becoming the Ryan Fredericks of this podcast. Once again, cannot make it in because of his knee injury. Hopefully we'll see him back in a couple of weeks. But thank you for joining me. It's been another kind of low-key couple of games for Fulham. Not much to talk about. We might be scratching for material. I jest, of course, because that flipping QPR game, I think we are all still reeling. So let's dive straight into it. I've got an interesting game note to play with you later that involves this and this.
Can't wait.
The chaps are looking at me quite scared as to what's going to happen. It's really nothing to worry about this game. It's good. It's good. I promise it's good. But first, let's have a look at Queen's Park Rangers. It was our 6th league game without a win. 2 missed penalties, 2 open goals, hit the bar and still lost 2-1 to QPR and our first defeat to them since the 80s. Let's dive straight into it. What do we think the consequences of losing that game are? I mean, have you ever seen anything like it?
No, not quite. I feel like the problem is that we weren't that bad. We were quite good.
I think I don't think anyone can really argue with you that week, apart from the fact we just didn't take our chances. I was going to ask you why you thought we lost, but it's a pretty simple explanation. I don't think that's really up for debate as to why we didn't win on Saturday.
Well, I think the chance creation's definitely there, isn't it? I mean, we create chance after chance. We just need to take them at some point.
That's an improvement. Because, at least we're creating them now. 2 weeks ago, we didn't create anything. So, although I thought Queen's Park Rangers were actually particularly poor, and I really don't think that they have any particularly good players apart from Sherry. I really do. I really think that was a game that we will look back on as one of the ones that we should have absolutely taken 3 points and will regret not taking 3 points. And more than, where Bristol City, we were okay and they were good.
Yeah, we were outplayed.
We were outplayed by a better side, and this weekend we were robbed. And I remember I was there with my brother, and on 85 minutes, he turned to me and goes, "They're going to rob a point here." And then,
See, and the 80th minute, and they were coming on top in those last 15 minutes. I was with Farrell on Saturday. He made it to the game. He can't make it to the podcast. And I said to him, "There's only one winner here, and it ain't us." I can just see it after all those chances missed. I completely only saw one winner, and then the goal from Silla, surprise, surprise, came a few minutes later.
It's a brilliant ball, in fairness. Although I'm not sure why we're not getting out to these wide players.
I think the one of the most, completely obvious things we've picked up from the first few games is that our back line tends to concede either 2 goals. Firstly, our fullbacks fall asleep and they get done at the back post as they did against Forest, and they did against QPR, the second goal, or they don't get out to the edge of the box quick enough like they did against Burton, and they did for the first goal here at QPR. Yeah. There is no leadership in that back four whatsoever. Going forward, we look brilliant at times, absolutely outstanding. Going at the back, out of possession, our pressing's bad, and our leadership in terms of the back four is absolutely horrendous at times. We look completely off in terms of balance.
Well, you mentioned the pressing, and I noticed this on Saturday. We seem to have this fluid attacking style, and all of our front players switch positions all the time. They interchange. But do you think they don't know their roles when they then lose the ball and they've got to get back into position and they find themselves on alien parts of the pitch and don't exactly know who's supposed to be where? Have we not quite got the understanding between those attacking players as to exactly who does what when we lose possession in their half?
It might come back to the point that we don't have any width again. And, I keep banging on about this and I think I sound like a broken record, but realistically, if you don't have any width and you don't know who's playing wide, is anyone going to get back and support your fullbacks who are being dragged all over the place? And I don't think we have that kind of back and forth running from, down the wings. And I had a lot of complaints when Kenny came off for Cabano, but I thought that it might force our wingers to stay wide, and one with Smith on, and two, to get back and start, covering the fullbacks, because I thought Scott Malone was excellent on the weekend, but again, it's him that needs to be getting out to Sherry on that last bit to stop that cross coming in, because once the ball's in the area and in that zone, and it's a delicious ball, and you want your strikers to be getting on the end of those, and he was always going to gamble, but there's no way that on 87 minutes that ball should be coming into your box unchallenged, unchecked.
I really feel like this year Malone and Odoi are going to be the people that are going to get the most abuse from the fans, if there's going to be any. Just simply because they are consistently left in one-on-one situations, and there's nothing much they can do about being in the situation they're in, other than the fact that they can't actually rely on either our holding midfielders or our wide players to help them. For me, if we're going to have interchanging positions, it should just be the top four, i.e. the 3 attacking midfielders and Martin or Smith or Woodrow, whoever plays, with the 2 holding. And those holding midfielders, for me, one of them has to be like a breaker, like a Kante, who can just stop the play and pass it on, and one of them who's a runner, slightly more creative. And I think we got that balance right in there, sort of, this weekend with Tunnicliffe and Parker. I thought Parker looked absolutely brilliant at times, very, very inspired.
It was man of the match for me, and I think
Absolutely.
for many fans of the game.
Yeah.
And you look at Tottenham versus City this weekend, and Tottenham really, really looked organised, and they know how to press, and they're free-flowing and fluid in attack as well, and they're so well drilled. Fulham, on the other hand, are fluid in attack, but so disorganised out of possession. We don't take any impetus.
Well, I thought that... I agree with Jack. I don't think QPR were particularly impressive at all. I thought they were quite poor, but they still managed to create a lot of chances, and it's got to be that disorganisation from us that allows them, of any team, that's certainly not going to be the most impressive side that we face this season, to come to the Cottage and create plenty of chances, and they finished a couple of them, and obviously we were punished for not finishing our own, and that is the main reason I still believe we lost. It could have been 4-2, 5-2, but they still got 2.
Yeah.
And they missed a couple of other half chances as well as Queen's Park Rangers. It certainly wasn't that it was a complete smash and grab, and it was their only attacks.
They had half a decent penalty shout turned down as well, which I thought was given. Yeah. And the ref ran over and then did the old clear movement. I was like, wow, that's you're really putting the heart attack measures on me at this point.
Do you think that one of our problems is that when we do attack, we tend to flood forward a lot, and the way we're set up is that we hold the ball quite far up the pitch.
Our fullbacks love a bomb on, don't they?
They love a bomb
right.
on. And everyone goes, and it leaves us exposed. And if anyone wants to drop back, like Burton did, and like QPR did do at times, on the counter, we're very much exposed. Do you think that's a problem?
Yeah, it might be. I mean, I think that it comes back to if we're, the fullbacks feel the need to bomb around there because there's no one else out there, and it's, they're looking for the spread, and then therefore when it goes, because also... much as like you were saying, Parker's the breaker in there as such and not the runner. And both of those players, Parker loves to get forward. Like, even if he's not the most attack-minded player in the world, Parker will sit ahead of the halfway line. And if you've got both fullbacks gone, it leaves literally 2 at the back. And I don't think we necessarily got caught on the counter as such, but I do think that there's room for it, and there's room that we could be caught on the counter. And, that's obviously quite a scary prospect when you're playing against teams with, pace and power up front. And I think that we might have got a bit, lucky with who we've played necessarily with that setup going on. And it could, really backfire on us and start to end in some heavy ones. On the other hand, I think the way that we're playing, if we click, I reckon we could, do some damage to teams. We could, we could be looking at a few 4 or 5-0s in here if it does go right.
I find it quite comforting that at least it looks like we have a plan. We have an idea. We have a way that we want to play, and the players are trying to buy into it. I just think it's a bit of a case of we haven't quite worked out exactly how to play it, and also how to be organised enough that when we lose the ball, that we're able to shut teams out. So I'm hopeful that in maybe half a dozen games, we may have to go through a few more bad results, but eventually this might click. And that's why I think it's so important that really the fans kind of stay on Slavisa's side, because this is a more organised Fulham team than I think that we've seen in years.
Yeah, I'm not worried. Definitely. Not worried about us, which is weird considering we haven't won in 7.
I think we've got so much talent in there. I think the optimal word here is balance. We need to find it. And it's so easy to say you need to find a balance, but in practice, it's much harder.
But we saw lots of times, I think under Kit particularly, I never really thought Fulham had a way of playing under Kit.
No,
it just seemed
we have a clear identity now.
Yeah, and
in my
that's
opinion.
got to be much better. It just is a case of he's got a lot of new players, and they've got to work out how to play Jukanovic's system without being exposed at the back.
I thought at the front we looked really good. I really do. And, obviously we didn't score, and that is the main job. And obviously there's time to criticise that. But I was thinking every time we broke, we looked like we were going to score. Yeah. And I tell you who was brilliant was Piazon. Absolutely sensational, and did something no one else did, and held his position and held his line. And I really do rate him. I think he's going to become a key cog. Yeah,
for a player of his age, he's fantastically mature and has a really good understanding of the way the game should be played.
The only thing I thought about Piazon is I think he was partly responsible for the first goal, because I don't think he tracked back, and I think he left Connor Washington free, and I just happened to have a good view of it from where I was in the Johnny Haynes, and he kind of was just standing around watching Connor Washington bomb on into the box, and then it was free and he had a shot. Obviously it was deflected, and it was a bit of an unfortunate goal to concede. So I personally think, although I think Piazon was brilliant going forward, I still think he has got a lot to learn when we lose the ball and we've got to reorganise. Let's have a look at... Sorry.
Just a quick one on that first goal. It might have just been me, but did anyone think Button really should have done a lot better?
Yeah, absolutely.
It sort of bobbled over. I know it took a deflection, but he also then... It was quite a weak shot to begin with. It took a deflection which slowed the ball down even further, and it sort of bobbled on him, and he got a sort of a hand on it and didn't push the ball out of goal, just sort of like let it loop over him. I really did think it was poor. And, then he was shouting at people afterwards, and I was a bit like, well, I'm not sure about that, David. Yeah.
I always just feel unfortunate when it is a deflection, though. You've just...
Yeah, no, I know it's hard, but I remember thinking... Is it just me? And I remember the people around me being like, what's Button doing? And it was sort of one of those. But
interesting.
There's a lot of calls for Bettinelli to get looking now.
Well, I mean, it is strange, and I've been meaning to mention this for a few weeks, how Jarman played in the Cup, and Bettinelli seems to have been almost frozen out, weirdly. And I really rate Bettinelli, and I think when he came back at the end of last season and was a replacement for Lonergan, we did improve a lot. It seems... slightly unjustified to me that he's not only not first choice, but it doesn't even seem to be second choice for Slavisa.
I think maybe the defence that you can have there is that I think Slavisa wants to look at it as having two first-team keepers who are competing for the shirt. And this is the first week, in fairness, that I've thought, Button's distribution hasn't been great. But this is the first week where I've gone, not good enough. And I think maybe if he wants two competing for that shirt, and Button hasn't really done anything to lose it, what he was trying to play is that second string in the Cup is not to use the first team players. I think that might be the way he looked at it. And I think maybe when we get to the FA Cup, he might look at that slightly differently, considering Button hasn't done, apart from this week, anything to justify being dropped.
Yeah, he's made some fantastic saves. The only thing, as you say, that he really lacks is distribution.
Yeah.
And if we're going to look to play out the back like we're looking like we did at the first few weeks of the season, not so much now, then I think distribution's key.
And if I was an opposing manager scouting that game, or even our last few games watching Button, I would tell the striker to press Button every single time. Yeah. I am convinced this season we will concede a goal through Button miscontrolling it and the striker pouncing or a bad pass or something.
Edwin van der Sar-esque.
Yes, against, was it Reyes?
Arsenal, or was it Reyes? Or I think one of them was Reyes, and then I think 3 years later he did it and almost did it again against Jeremy Aladiadier. And I think he might have got away with that one, but he definitely lost it to Reyes, yeah.
So looking forward and the chances that we missed, is there anything Jukanovic can do about it? So I'm just thinking back. Obviously there was the 2 missed penalties, and might ask you who you'd have to take penalties. But those 2 chances, first one missed by Chris Martin and the second one by Cabano. Surely there is nothing else that once Slavisa sends them over the white line, there's no training exercise in the world that can fix that, is there?
No.
In essence, no. It's just being in that situation and having a proper striker who knows how to compose himself in that situation. I think for the first, there's a point where Martin is through one-on-one with Piazon, and Piazon sets him up, and Martin is completely off balance. It would be. He
needed to hit that with his left foot. I don't know why he went for it with his right.
I don't know why he's gone for his right. He could have taken a touch. He's not off balance.
I don't think he's expecting the ball.
Yeah.
And I really don't. And also I've got a
indicator.
Correct, but I also don't think that maybe... I've looked it back and it might be the right option to pass. But, it's a derby game. You're looking, you're a new player, if you're Piazon, and you're looking to make your mark with a new club. I don't see any situation I don't see any reason in that situation why you wouldn't shoot.
No.
I just don't understand it. Even if he goes round Smithies or tries to go round Smithies, Martin's decoy run, you know, if
enough
anything,
to draw that defender
it's
away.
enough to draw the defender, and also it allows Piazon to go round the keeper if he wants, because the keeper has to then commit.
Yeah.
So I don't think Martin's expecting the ball. What I do think is when he gets the ball, he take a touch. He's gone mad trying to hit that first time.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's completely his fault. I don't think it's either of their faults, to be honest. I think they've had a mix-up in communication.
I think if you look at Martin's stats over the past 3 or 4 years, I know stats don't tell the full story, but when he tends to score one, that's when it seems to absolutely fly off the handle for him. He'll score in consecutive games.
Okay.
It's always had that with Derby. If he doesn't score over a long period of time, you sort of see him create less and less. As soon as he scores one, his creation stats fly up off the chart, and his goals get more and more consecutive over a period of time, to a point where he becomes almost unplayable, and then he sort of hits a drought again.
And this is
Definitely
why...
a confident striker. If any key centre forward, you're going to want a high confidence striker.
Yep.
And this
He's
is
not got that at the
why
moment.
I was very surprised he didn't take the first penalty.
Completely agreed.
I mean, he took penalties for Derby, was I don't know the exact stats, but from what I know, he didn't miss many. He had a fairly decent record. Kenny's never really taken penalties for us. It was always Ross McCormack. I don't know if he had pedigree taking them at Blackburn, but I'd have just thought that was the obvious choice that Chris Martin would take that penalty. A, because he's a decent penalty taker, but B, give him a penalty, give him a goal, and then he's off the mark.
Exactly. And I think we talked about this with Woodrow a couple of weeks ago, is that his body language was so... This is Kenny I'm talking about. His body language was so blatant as to where who's going to put that ball. Smithies just, had to pick it out. Had to push the ball around the post. Like,
Also,
it was
Smithies
quite
has an
blatant.
unbelievable penalty saving record. I don't know if anyone else has seen this, but I was reading match reports today, and I was reading a QPR one, which was a really bizarre read. And I'll send you. We'll put a link on the Twitter maybe.
Yeah,
but
let's do it.
It's a really bizarre read because they're like, oh, we completely deserved the win, and I was reading like, you're watching a different game, like, surely. But one of their things was they were talking about Smithies' penalty saving record, and it's something like unbelievable. Like, he saved 6 out of 9 in his last 2 seasons, which is mad. Like, no one has that kind of record.
No.
Well, actually saying that, there's a keeper for Valencia called Diego Alves, and he's faced something like 32 penalties in La Liga. He's saved 22 of them.
Goodness me.
To all sides and all corners as well.
The good thing is, once a keeper has got that kind of record, then it becomes a mental game as much as the keeper's ability. You've got a penalty here against someone that saves over 50% of penalties. That must, in a striker, and that will be, I'm sure, very well known. Or maybe Smithies, maybe not quite as well known amongst the players. But yeah, it's half the battle when you start saving lots of penalties, and the strikers will crumble in front of you.
I don't think TC's hit a very good penalty there either.
That wasn't great at penalty, yeah, you're completely right there.
And Sonny Aluko, I mean...
The guy just needs to catch a break, doesn't he? It's probably one of the most unluckiest finishes I've ever seen in following
I feel a bit
football.
sorry for him. I feel like I'm quite mixed about this penalty because one of two things. One, it's not that bad a penalty. He's not missed.
No.
He's not actually missed the goal. Like, if that goes in, everyone's like, brilliant penalty. Absolutely. If it comes off the inside of the inside of the post and goes in, everyone's been. But that said, 95th minute, you whack the ball straight down the middle.
Yeah.
Well, that was what
Straight
everyone
down
around
the
me...
middle, please, just down the middle. Because Smithies has to dive. He can't stand in the middle. You look like an idiot. Someone's just got to go. Give the ball.
lash it, don't
give
you?
the ball to Ragnar Sigurdsson there. As far as I'm concerned, in that situation, just give the ball to Sigurdsson. Like, he will just whack the ball down the middle, and he will score.
Yeah, he will.
Because it was a get out of jail free card, wasn't it? I mean, it was a stupid decision from the Queen's Park Rangers defender on Hozabed. I can't remember who gave away the penalty. Maybe Kulka.
Probably Carl Henry, one of the worst footballers I've ever seen.
But it really was. We'd thrown the game away late. It didn't look like we were actually going to get back into the game, I didn't think. And then suddenly we just got this penalty out of nowhere. I thought, oh my God, we've somehow managed to claw this back after throwing it away. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I think Aluko was the right choice for the penalty in that situation with Martin
But yeah, I would,
off the field.
At the time, I said Piazon. Because he's Brazilian, but I think it was purely because he was Brazilian.
Right.
And, I was like, he's going to score. But I think
Piazon in that situation, we had Corley Woodrow, kind of a bit of an inexperienced, and Tom Kearney. I think we needed someone with a head like Aluko to take it.
Hozabed's got quite a good penalty taking record.
Yeah, Hozabed's record is very good. And
Is it?
in Spain, he's well renowned to be sort of like a set piece specialist.
Well, we saw that in action, didn't we?
Yeah, and that was a very fantastic set piece, and he's had that reputation for a long time. He had a fantastic season with Rayo last season, who unfortunately were relegated. He was actually meant to move to Sevilla, but they refused to pay his release clause in his contract, so he didn't make it. So in actual fact, Fulham sort of, if you look at it this way, have a Champions League pedigree player.
Well, it's an incredible signing, really, when you look at it. And
considering the stature of the player, and stats-wise, he's not seen as Vallecano's best midfielder from last season. But in actual fact, if you look at what he does off the ball as well as on it, he's more of a complete player than any other midfielder we've got, in my opinion. Slightly biased.
He does seem to. I don't like it though when he has the last couple of. He did it against Bristol and he did it against QPR. And we've brought him on to play in the more defensive midfield role. I don't like him there because I think, he was responsible for losing the ball a couple of times before Bristol City's goal, and it was actually him that lost the ball before the QPR goal, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So I think if we bring him on, I'd just like to see him go into that attacking midfield trio rather than try and replace Parker and Tunnicliffe, which is a difficult role for any person to come into a game late on and try and fill Parker and Tunnicliffe's boots, breaking up the play. I just don't think that's his
In fairness, I don't think we had much of a choice. I don't know.
No, we were.
I don't know if anyone else was on the bench, but that could actually have played that role. And Parker took a bit of a knock, didn't he?
Yeah, I think both Parker and Kearney did take knocks, and that's why.
Kearney wasn't happy when he went off.
Was he not?
He had a bit of a strop.
Oh, interesting. Well, you've got a bit of an interesting theory about Kearney. You're not 100% sure about his attitude in the last couple.
No, I'm not convinced. And don't get me wrong, I do think that Tom Kearney is our best player by some distance, and I also think he's a phenomenal footballer. But I'm not 100% convinced he's captain material for a couple of reasons. One, on Saturday, Odoi got the ball on the right wing and played a channel ball for Kenny to run to, and it was quite a good ball. It was a very good idea, but it was a slightly overhit, and the ball went out of play, and Kenny turned around and absolutely lost the plot at Odoi. And I think Odoi's a bit taken aback because he sort of was, his face was like, well, I thought that was quite good. And Kenny sort of, threw his toys out the pram bit, and then he did it again when he got substituted. And I also just don't think he's got the kind of right attitude to bring the team into play, especially when we go 2-1 down, 1-0 down with not that long to play. I think we saw it against Burton a bit, that he wasn't the one lifting them up, geeing them up. And, in the way that Scotty Parker does that in a brilliant way, and he's a brilliant, inspirational player on the pitch. And, for a long time, I wasn't convinced by Scott Parker. And I've come round in a big, big way to the way he plays.
Oh, massively.
But, for example, just as a point, and as a self-confessed Tunnicliffe obsessive, I'm, going to put it out there. But the way that Tunnicliffe, at one point, we were in the 92nd minute, took the ball round the QPR player, got scythed down, and, it was a horrible tackle. It was a card, I believe, was given out for it in the advantage. Got up again, won the ball again, drove into the middle of midfield and played an absolutely beautiful ball for Aluko. Aluko and Malone got mixed up, and then Tunnicliffe was so frustrated with the fact that it hadn't gone right, and a bit of himself, a bit like, why have you not mixed it up? It's the 92nd minute, come on, lads. And I just think that that's the kind of attitude that your captain's got to have. It's the kind of attitude that Scotty has. It's, it's head of Kenny sort of, give the ball to me, I'm quite good. Yeah. I might make something happen. And, a lot of the time he does, and I respect that, but that's not the attitude really you want your captain to have. You want him bringing everyone else in, bringing everyone up and trying to get the best out of everyone, especially in those, dark moments.
I think Tunnicliffe is just such a fantastic player. I think his work rate and energy, and that move that you mentioned in the 92nd minute, I think it was Aluko and was it Piazon and mixed up?
Aluko and Malone.
They got absolutely pillared by the stadium when that happened, didn't they? But yeah, I would agree with you that I think in the absence of Scott Parker that Ryan does seem to have more of the leadership qualities required of a captain. But then again, and you saw this tweet earlier, Gary Lineker went on Twitter quite forcefully saying that in England we overstate the importance of the captain role anyway, and this is only the vice captain we're talking about.
Yeah, for me, a captain is crucial to any sort of team in any sort of sport. He's a role model on the pitch. He's a role model off the pitch. I think for Parker gives us that sort of, as Jack rightly points out, he gives us that sort of inspiration when we're down. He quite obviously leads by example in terms of both his running, his creativity, the way he wants to cover every blade of grass, despite the fact his legs clearly can't carry him that far anymore. But then again, it's off the pitch as well. You know, he's an authoritative player. Off the pitch, he's coached our younger ages. And he really knows what the club is about. And I think if you look at any great captain throughout history, whether that's like Carles Puyol, whether it's like Raul, those sort of players, firstly, they know what the club is about and they know how to act, but then they lead by example on the pitch. And for me, like, a captain has to be there. And for me, right now, that captain has to be Scott Parker. I think Kenny could be a captain in the future.
Yeah, agreed. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to write him off. I just think he's very young and immature to be put in that role.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think Ton is possibly the same age as Kenny, maybe a year or two older, but he just seems to be much more of a mature player.
A different type of player,
You know, an engine room and that kind of...
That's what you want in a captain.
I guess the only thing against Tunnicliffe is some of his kind of off-the-field antics.
Those have been blown up out of proportion.
It has been a bit, but still, that is not...
I do think that was a bit like friends having a bit of a laugh. I still, to this day, would argue that was a bit friends having a laugh, and
they must know each other.
They do know each other.
Yeah.
They were in the England setup together, in the younger setup, and like for a fact, there was a couple of tweets last week where Ryan Fredericks was out for dinner with Patrick Bamford, and was tweeting, being like, well, hey, Ryan Tunnicliffe wasn't invited. Like, you know, all this kind of stuff. I think this has been massively put out. And I think the reason it came down hard on him was because they were a bit like, well, you can't get away with this because it's starting to... But, yeah, I mean, if Lineker's really got that thing, I don't know how you can have that attitude when we were all alive to watch the 2005 Champions League final. Like, I've never seen a team be carried on the back of one man like that day, and I really don't think that role can be understated.
And especially when you've played football as well. Like I've played in football teams. I'm not saying I've played in Champions League finals or anything, but I've had some like good captains over the years, and you know it's a great team when you've got a great captain. There's so much importance on it.
Well, I think Lineker's the first guy to admit that Bobby Moore's was the best ever England captain and the best West Ham captain. He's done numerous documentaries on the guy, but then he's coming out and saying that the importance shouldn't really be put on the captain. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And for me, I think Kearney is acting the way he is at the moment because he knows he's not playing particularly well.
Yeah, I think things will turn around, and I think he was quite poor against Forest despite him managing to grab the goal. Talking about that Forest performance, moving away a little bit from Queen's Park Rangers, it was another quite decent performance from us away from home. We're still unbeaten on the road. All our defeats have come at the Cottage. Whoever thought we'd say that? How shit must you be, we're winning at home?
Yeah, exactly.
Is there any particular reason for this? Do you think it's, again, the way we set up, or do you think it's just a little bit of an anomaly that we seem to be losing at home and then doing all right away?
I don't know. I've got a slight theory about this. I don't know if you guys want to chime in here, but I think the reason we're doing so well away from home is because of this clear identity we have as a football team to always boss the possession, be in control of most parts of the pitch, especially the middle and final third if we can. Really, the home team sort of expect to come out onto the pitch with an away team that wants to set up within that middle and latter third, i.e. protecting their own goal, sitting back, letting the home team come onto and boss possession. Where we go out there all guns blazing, we want to keep the ball. The home team really aren't used to it. You know, the away fans sort of get on their back a little bit more, and then it sort of swings into our advantage. And I think that's why we've been so good on the road. I don't know, that's my personal opinion. I don't know if you guys agree.
I'm fully on board with that theory, really. I think the way we set up, I totally agree. I think it is the way we set up, and we are a counter-attacking side, and that does seem to play to our advantage. Plus, I think that playing at home at the moment, the kind of, especially some of these big grounds in the Championship, I think fans are a lot quicker these days to get on the backs of the home side, and sometimes it must just be easier to be away from home and away from the pressures. Even at Craven Cottage, the slightest mistake.
We're close as well, aren't we? We're close to the pitch at Craven Cottage. You can hear everything. It's a tin. Like, they really does, settle them in and
which is a great thing when they think everything's going well. It's impossible for an away side to play against. Similar to like when you go to White Hart Lane or used to go to the old Upton Park, and playing an away side when they're on top is just, things happen to your brain and you just start to make decisions that you wouldn't make normally. But I also think it's a curse when things aren't quite going as well because, they hear everything.
Well, football fans, are not fickle, but it's easy when you're 0-0 at home after 45 minutes
to get restless
and be like, we haven't had any of the ball. Why are none of our players getting stuck in? And it happens to us. We're as bad as anyone else for doing it.
Totally agree.
But it's one of those ones where you get into those players and they're going, oh God, I better get out there and make that tackle, and suddenly 1-2 and you're gone.
Yeah.
And you've brought a couple of players out of the game because they've made a stupid decision that they wouldn't have made if they hadn't had the fans on their back. And I think we're guilty of it as much as anyone else, but I think that suits us because of the way that we play so quick on the break, and especially with the front three that we played.
At times, we touched on this, I think last week. Some of our passing sequences are so fast, so crisp that we can move 15, 20, 25 yards in such a short amount of time. It's near on impossible to play against us, except when we get into the box and we can't finish.
Well, Aluko's chance in the first half, where he ended up curling it slightly wide, comes from an absolutely glorious passage of play. It's like a 5-pass move that has Aluko at the edge of the box from within our own, within the edge of our own centre circle, and it's an unbelievable sweeping move across ball.
And that disallowed goal in Forest, I think it's the first one. After the amazing play on the edge of the box, and Kearney slides a pass all the way across the penalty area to Aluko, who's on the far side, and he curls it across the keeper. And he's marginally offside according to the linesman, but according to the replays that we see on FulhamFC.com, he's played on by the right back by about 2.5 yards, I reckon. It should have stood.
And that completely changes the game if we, take the lead rather than Forest. And I believe Matt Smith's goal, it was our second disallowed goal when it was at 1-1 and in the final 10 minutes of the match. I think that's onside. I don't know if you guys have studied the replay, but the defender near him, he is in front of. But actually, if you look to the right-hand side of the picture, there is another defender who I am convinced is playing Matt Smith onside, and you can see it from the lines on the pitch.
I think that one's tighter. I think the Aluko one is a stonewall wrong decision.
Yeah,
I think the Smith one is a bit, also because he's so big. I think he's sort of gangling around at the back post. You're sort of like, well, if his arm's in front, he's off, isn't he? It's oh, not your arm. Anything that you can score with.
Anything you can score, isn't it? Yeah.
So if any part of his body is ahead of him, which is possible when you're a bit of a lump like Matt Smith, but I think that one's tighter. But I think they're both questionable calls.
I think the thing we have to consider on the Matt Smith goal is that the defender for Forest is on the linesman's side of the pitch. So anything that Matt Smith is past him, or is going to make him look like he's offside, in the same way that Aluko is on his side of the pitch for the first offside goal. So anywhere Aluko's in front of a Nottingham Forest player, it's going to look like he's offside as well. So I think we've been done in there by the side the referee's linesman's on. Sorry.
No, exactly. And Nicholas Bentner.
Of course he scored.
If he was going to score against anyone, it's going to be us, right? Danny Graham didn't score in 32 goals, scored against us. If anyone's going to score a goal...
That first Bentner strike is absolutely sublime.
40 yards out, he just bashes it off the bar.
It's an absolute treat. It's almost a bit heartbreaking that it didn't go, and it was such a good effort. You're like, well... he deserved it.
He did have a good game. Then again, he should be a bit too good for this league because he at times cut it in the Premier League. And
at times,
he's the third best player in the world, isn't he?
Oh, he is. Undoubtedly. At times, though, you say he's maybe a cut above this league. There are times where we're trying to get around him to get the ball off him. He's just shielding it, passing and moving, like he's never been away from the game. In actual fact, he hasn't played in over 6 months, isn't it?
And he hadn't scored in England in 2 years.
Yeah. Sammy had a good game as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he's dangerous.
At least he didn't hit a flipping rocket.
Yeah, that's true.
So we look back at the Queen's Park Rangers game. For me, it's got to be one of the unluckiest defeats that I can remember. I mean, I can't ever remember seeing a game. I don't think I've ever seen many missed penalties for Fulham in the past 10 years. We've always had quite a good record with penalty takers. We've had Ross McCormack, I'm thinking of. I can think that...
Berbatov,
the
best penalty taker of all time.
Murphy could take a penalty.
Fantastic.
Did miss a very important one against City, which he followed up and put into the net.
Was that in a 2-2 draw?
No, it was in the 3-1 Great Escape, 3-2 Great Escape game.
And a bit further back, Heider Helgeson could take a penalty.
Yeah, correct.
So
I don't
it seems
think he ever missed one for him, in fact.
No, I don't think he did either. So it was an unlucky one. 2 missed penalties, hit the woodwork, and 2 pretty much open goals missed. Just wondered if you could think of any other particularly unlucky or lucky Fulham results over the years where really the result just completely didn't match
Yeah.
the performance?
I can think of a particularly unlucky one that absolutely infuriates me literally to this day. We were playing Tottenham and they were in their horrendous purple kit. And we had completely outplayed them all game. The score was currently 1-1 going into about the 91st minute. And Fulham are trying to bundle the ball in, and it's literally going over the line. And Kyle Walker trips over himself and sort of punches the ball round the post. One of the most blatant handballs I've ever seen in my life. And he claims it's come off his head. They go right down the other end, play the ball over the top, and Jermaine Defoe goes around Hangeland and slots it past Mark Schwarzer, and they win the game. And I was absolutely furious that the referee didn't see this.
I can't remember this. Am I being... I don't know. I don't remember this game.
It certainly happened. It's emblazoned in the front of my memory.
It rings bells. It rings bells.
Yeah. I mean, he's literally laying down on the goal line to stop the ball.
But the one that I thought about, I think was a similar time, was when we lost to Arsenal and Vito Manone.
Had the game of his life.
Yeah.
Absolute game of his life, and they won 1-0. I think Van Persie scored in the 50th minute. I remember being in the Hammersmith end, and he pulled off save after save. Bobby Zamora must have had 4 or 5 gilt-edged chances, and Manone just saved every single one of them.
Yeah, I remember that game. And and Arsenal, I was talking to Arsenal fans about that game recently, actually, and they were like, it was the only good game he ever had for the club. And, there we are, Fulhamish.
But a particularly lucky one that I think many Fulham fans would agree has got to be...
United away.
Oh, were you going to say that?
Yeah.
I was actually going to say Newcastle away.
Okay, yeah, I know what you mean.
When
4-1.
the 4-1, I looked at the stats earlier, found them up. 26 shots Newcastle had, 20 of those on target, and 19 corners compared to our none. And we won 4-1. I mean, that's one of those performances that kind of went down in folklore. We had 4 chances, and they were all 4 fantastic goals. But yeah, that United away with the... are you talking about the 80 crosses?
Dan Burns won good game in the Fulham shirt.
Dan Bird must have had a sore head for about 3 weeks after that game.
Well, he then, afterwards in the press conference, didn't he then say they were like a conference team?
I don't remember that.
No? What?
Yeah, he did. He went on afterwards, and I think he was just saying, he was trying to say, oh, it was like matches I've played when I was playing in the conference, but obviously the press take anything like that, and then it was plastered on every front page, back page the next day. Dan Burn, Man United conference team.
There's a couple. I had quite a lot of lucky ones, in fact, as recently I've thought of. And one of them, our first game in the Premier League in our last season there, we beat Sunderland 1-0 away.
Oh my God.
Kasami
We all
scored
got
a header.
the 3 away shirts.
Yeah, Kasami scored a header, and it was just one of the worst games I've ever seen Fulham play. We were absolutely terrible, and they must have missed 30 chances. Actually, and the worst culprit of all was Adam Johnson, who had just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And I don't know, but it was...
I remember watching that game. I didn't get to go up. I think I remember being on holiday, but I remember watching it, and... yeah, that was a dreadful, dreadful game. Amazing to think how the season we got relegated, we won the first game of the season away from home. You'd have thought that was a pretty good omen.
But Mohamedou Diarra should have been sent off about 3 times over in that game, if I remember rightly. He was absolutely outclassed and was taken off, I think, just after half-time.
We were fully desperate that day, like desperate. One of the worst performances I've ever seen.
Yeah, we were like lumping it everywhere, weren't we?
Yeah.
Long balls everywhere. I remember that quite vividly, it being one of the worst Fulham performances I've ever seen. We've come out of a win.
3 points.
I'm actually I'm very surprised that Sunderland managed to stay up that season. I think they did because they walloped us 4-1 at home and Johnson scored a hat-trick.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
That was the season when they
Swings and roundabouts, huh?
they beat Chelsea away, and they were the first team to win at Stamford Bridge under Mourinho. I mean, they were the reason we went down that year, was Sunderland.
They deserved it, though.
Yeah, they did.
They were unbelievably good towards the end of the season. I remember watching them be like, well, this is over.
Yeah.
They do it every year. They're so infuriating.
It's the longest relegation of all time.
Hopefully they'll go down.
They'll go down this year, I think.
Fingers crossed.
We beat Liverpool 2-0 in 2005, and there's a good story attached to this one, which was...
Is it the Johnny Haynes day?
Yes. It was the Johnny Haynes day, and they played a really, really weak 11, and we won 2-0 at home, and Neil Warnock lost his rag because it was the game that the 3 points kept us up. Well, they secured our season status, and basically Warnock went on a run about how
Liverpool
Benitez
rested
had
so many players
because they had the Champions League final.
Yes.
on the Wednesday.
It wasn't the Johnny Haynes day. Johnny Haynes day was
2007.
Yeah,
that
was a different season. But yeah, but we played poorly that game, didn't we? We didn't deserve to beat.
It wasn't. We didn't really deserve to beat them. It wasn't one of the worst. But it wasn't like a real lack. But the fact that they had that Champions League final could have kept us up that season.
We were going down that season.
We were in real trouble.
We were abysmal that season.
Yeah.
I think that was a real stroke of luck.
In our relegation season, I remember us having a very, very lucky win over Norwich. They completely dominated us for long periods of time, and Rodaiga bobbled one in right towards the end, I believe, under Magat. That was a pretty horrendous performance from us.
Sean Kavanagh did the same for us in another Norwich game in our first season in the Championship. But we just like being Norwich.
Well, they're coming up in 10 days' time.
We could do with it, couldn't we?
Yeah, we really could.
Be a nice duck to break.
Chaps, do you fancy playing this game?
Go on.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got a theme tune. Okay, welcome to Play Your Managers Right. I'm your host, Sammy James, and this is how well you know different Fulham managers and how long they were in charge for. It's effectively a game of higher or lower, and we'll see who is the winner. Contestant number 1, what's your name and where do you come from?
I'm Ben Jarman, I come from Chelmsford in Essex.
Contestant number 2, what's your name and where do you come from?
I'm Jack Collins and I come from London.
Beautiful stuff. So, right, this game is fairly simple. I've got a list here, and this was slightly inspired by Sam Allardyce's 67 days in charge. So I've got a list of managers here and how long they were in charge for. Some of them are days, sometimes them are months and days, and some of them are years, months and days. I will ask you one by one whether it is higher or lower than the previous person. Now, it's a bit... I worked this out earlier. It is a little bit unfair. Has anyone got a coin? Here we go. There's a slight advantage to going second. So I'll flip a coin, and whoever gets it gets to go second, right? And if you get it right, I'll give you one of these. And if you get it wrong, I'll give you one of these. And I think to make it a little more interesting, you each have a life. So you can get one wrong, and then... after that, if you get a second one wrong, you're out and the other person wins, okay? So, Jack, I'll let you do the honours. Heads or tails?
Heads.
Okay. Heads it is. So you get to go second. Ben, you're going first, all right?
Okay, yep.
So I will start you off with Sam Allardyce. So we're going to start with Sam Allardyce, okay? And the next person is Rennie Mullenstein. Was Rennie Mullenstein a Fulham manager longer than Sam Allardyce was England manager? Is it higher or lower?
I literally can only remember him being in charge for around about 3 matches, which would equate to about 2 weeks, wouldn't it? But are you including when he was brought in as an advisor?
No. When he took over from Yol, I think after the West Ham game, he was fired, Martin Yol, and then Rennie Mullenstein took charge. So was he in charge for higher or lower amount of days than Sam Allardyce's England boss?
I'm going to go for higher, but I think I might lose life.
You bang on. Rennie Mullenstein was manager for 75 days compared to Sam Allardyce's 67. So you've still got a life. You're still in play. Jack, it's on to you. Paul Bracewell.
Oh, 97, 98.
Okay, so was Paul Bracewell in charge for higher or lower amount of days than Rennie Mullenstein?
Oh, good question. I'm going to say higher.
Bang on. 10 months and 13 days, or 318 days.
Oh, well higher.
Between 1999 and 2000. Okay.
Hang on, wasn't... Oh no, Bracewell played 97 days. I was going to say,
'cause
Karl-Heinz Riedler was the caretaker.
Yeah.
Okay. It's good, it's fine.
So, next, back to Ben. You've still both got a life. Mark Hughes. Was he a higher or lower amount of days than Paul Bracewell, who was in charge for 10 months and 13 days? Was Mark Hughes there longer or shorter than that?
I think in this instance, I think I'm going to go for higher. He was in charge for a season, wasn't he?
I thought so, yeah.
He was pretty much May to June, wasn't he, if I believe? Yes.
You bang on. Mark Hughes, though, not much longer, 11 months and 4 days. So only less than a month longer than Paul Bracewell, because he joined on the 29th of July 2010 and then he left and resigned on the 2nd of June 2011. By the way, I only got these off Wikipedia, so I mean they might not be exactly bang on, but fairly close. Okay, Jack, I think this one could be a bit easier. Chris Coleman, was he in charge for a higher or lower amount of days than Mark Hughes' 11 months and 4 days?
Higher.
Obviously, Chris Coleman from April 2003 to April 2007. 3 years, 11 months and 25 days. So we're back with Ben. You've both still got a life. You might get to the end of this and you've still got both your lives. You're doing quite well. So next up, Roy Hodgson. Okay, so Roy Hodgson, one of the greatest managers in our history. But was he there a higher or lower amount of days than Chris Coleman's 3 years and 11 months?
I want to say lower, but I believe only by a tad. My head wants to say he was there for 4 years, but he wasn't. He was there for much less, 2007 to 10, wasn't he? And then Liverpool nicked him off us after the final.
So you go, is that your final answer?
Yeah, lower.
Bang on again. My God, you guys are brilliant at this. Okay, I think we're getting a little harder now. Martin Jol. So was Martin Jol there for higher or lower time, I keep getting this wrong, than Roy Hodgson's 2 years, 6 months and 4 days? So was Martin Jol higher or lower than 2 years and 6 months, Jack?
So Yol took over from Hughes.
Yep.
And he definitely lost the job in December of that year. So that means he was from June, we discovered, to December. What was the one before? What was Hodgson's?
2 years, 6 months and 4 days.
It's going to be tight. I'm going to go lower.
Oh, you've just got it. 2 years, 5 months and 25 days. So only just by a matter of about 10 days. He was there slightly less time. Okay, Ben, back to you. You've still both got a life. I might just take away your lives now and make this more interesting.
How many are left?
I'm just going to fall over at this hurdle right now.
Kit Simons. So with Kit Simons, higher or lower than 2 years, 5 months and 25 days?
Lower.
Yeah, this one's quite easy. Bang on. You're still in the game. So you've lost your life now, so it's all to play for, Jack. Kevin Keegan.
Ooh.
Was he there less than Kit Simons, who was in charge for 1 year, 1 month and 22 days?
I think he was higher. I'm going to go higher.
Bang on again.
Yeah, it's 2 years, wasn't it? Nearly 2 years.
No. Very, very little in it. Oh, no. You actually got that wrong.
No.
I'm so sorry.
Well...
1 year, 1 year, 6 days, 371 days
he got robbed
in charge.
by England, didn't he?
Yes, so he was slightly less than Kit Simons. So I'm afraid, Jack, that means Ben is the champion.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What'd you win?
I'll buy a chocolate bar next week.
Sounds good to me.
Right, there we go. Good job.
Shout out to Marcelo Bielsa, though, who was in charge of Lazio this summer for a grand total of 2 days.
2 days?
2 days.
What went wrong?
They basically promised that he could sign 4 players. As soon as he signed his contract, and he said, "Where's my players?" And they said they haven't even got in contact with them. So he's like, "I'm leaving."
Oh, fair enough.
The record, I believe, is something like 3 hours. There was a bloke who signed a contract and then 3 hours later they replaced him with someone else. I can't remember. He was like a caretaker manager and they brought in someone 3 hours later. It was somewhere like Wolves, or I believe it's someone with a yellow shirt. I could be wrong.
Was it Claudio Reyna?
No.
Who joined, no, not as a manager, but as a player. I think joined Man City or Bolton. I can't remember which way round it was, for about an hour. I think he took the photo at the stadium, and in the last minute he'd already taken the photo, and before that Bolton, I believe he thought he joined Bolton and then joined Man City at the last minute.
That's brilliant.
He took the photo and everything, and then his agent went, "Oh no, City have matched your offer," or whoever it was he went to. So even after he'd taken the photo and Bolton had put the press release up saying they'd signed Claudio Reyna, he then went off to another club.
I think there was quite a funny one with Palermo as well, who sacked their manager at the start of the season, replaced him with another manager, sacked him, and then replaced him with the manager that started the season must have been about a month and a half afterwards. And then they've continuously switched managers. Again, Chiellino's their owner in Leeds. So you know what kind of club that is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Chiellino's had many more managers than he's had years in charge of Fulham. Is it something like nearly 40 managers he's gone through in that time?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
obscene. It's an obscene amount of people going through that
Something
club.
like 21 managers in the last 15 years.
Well, I mean, Leeds will be
Catching them.
catching them up if they don't hang about with Gary Monk for a bit longer.
And
Di
as we were
Matteo's
saying-
gone, hasn't he?
Yeah,
Yes.
same before the pod we were talking about Di Matteo and how Aston Villa are completely mirroring Fulham from the 14-15 season.
Yes.
No, you were saying about the sequence of
Well,
tweets,
yeah,
right?
well, get relegated, buy Ross McCormack, figure out the championship's harder than you thought, and then sack your manager. I won't take credit for that. That was a tweet I saw earlier on Twitter. But, I mean, they literally are the Fulham of a few years ago.
I've got a bet on them to double drop.
Currently sitting 19th, so you could be on for that. mate.
What's to get on that?
About, in fairness, they were almost relegated by the time I put it on. I think I got about 20-1 on it. I got 5 on it.
Wigan
Decent.
double dropped when they went down, didn't they?
Yeah, I really did think they're a club in turmoil, absolute turmoil behind the scenes, on the pitch. Like they're in real
The
trouble.
fact that their chairman displays his business plans and ideas on Twitter in 140 characters.
He's a nutter.
Yeah,
like
he's a
full-on
nutcase.
nutter. We thought, our
Fernandes
chairman's a
was
bit
bad.
mad,
He's
but this
another
guy's
level.
an absolute nut man.
Yeah, we thought Fernandes was bad.
Did you see his picture after the game?
No.
Oh, God, I
He
don't want
posted a
to.
picture with Washington and Smithies, being like, Connor Washington didn't stop running, and just Smithies, wow. Just like, one, this doesn't make any
Absolute
sense.
dick.
But two,
If you ever take an Air Asia flight, it sums up Queen's Park Rangers perfectly. Disgraceful. Right, well, if Aston Villa do get relegated, Jack, the drinks are on you. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your sterling work this week. Ben, congratulations. You are the Play Your Managers Right champion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your kind comments about the podcast. We're up to 2,500 downloads now. From just a few
Amazing.
episodes. We won't be back next week because it's the international break, but I may have an interview with a special guest this week as a bonus episode with a celebrity Fulham fan, but it's not confirmed yet. So it might not happen, but keep your eyes peeled. There could be a bonus episode of Fulhamish coming over the international break. But gents, we'll hopefully see you soon, and Fulhamish will return after the Barnsley game. So
with some more success, hopefully.
let's flip and hope. So let's hope we bring this horrific sequence to an end. Have a good evening, gents.
Take it easy. Thank you.
Thank you.